In the north of Spain, where the Ebro River cuts through limestone and clay. There is a land that has been making wine for over 2,000 years. They call it Rioja. Not just a wine, a bloodline. A region shaped by mountains, rivers, monks, and war. This is the story of how a small valley in northern Spain became one of the most celebrated wine regions on Earth. And why, every single year, its soil still decides what ends up in your glass. To understand Rioja, you first have to understand its geography, because in this region, geography is destiny. The Sierra de Cantabria mountains rise like a wall to the north, blocking the cold, wet winds coming off the Atlantic Ocean. Without them, Rioja would be a completely different place. This natural barrier creates something rare, a meeting point between two climates. Atlantic influence brings rain and freshness from the northwest. Mediterranean influence brings heat and dry summers from the southeast. The result is a region split into three distinct zones. Rioja Alta, the coolest and highest, known for elegance and structure. Rioja Alavesa, in the Basque country, with steep slopes and chalky soils. And Rioja Oriental, formerly called Rioja Baja, hotter, drier, producing riper, bolder wines. Three zones, one river, one grape that ties them all together. Beneath every vineyard in Rioja lies a different story written in soil. In the higher slopes, you find clay limestone soils, pale and chalky. Holding just enough water to keep the vines alive through dry summers. Lower down, near the river, the soil turns to iron-rich clay, reddish, dense. Giving wines more power and deeper color. And along the Ebro itself, alluvial soils of sand and gravel. Produce lighter, softer wines, often blended to add roundness. This is why two bottles from Rioja made from the same grape can taste like they come from two different countries. At the heart of almost every Rioja wine is a single grape, Tempranillo. Early ripening, thick-skinned, built to survive the region's shifting climate. It gives structure, dark fruit, and the ability to age for decades in oakened bottle. But Tempranillo rarely stands alone. Garnacha adds warmth and sweetness of fruit. Graciano, rare and difficult to grow, brings acidity, color, and the ability to age. Mazuelo, known elsewhere as Carignan, adds rustic depth. And for the whites, Viura, fresh and citrus-driven. Sometimes aged in oak to become something richer, almost forgotten, now being rediscovered by a new generation of winemakers. Rioja is not one grape, it's a conversation between several. Winemaking here dates back to Roman times. But Rioja as we know it today was shaped by disaster, far away in France. In the late 1800s, the phylloxera louse devastated the vineyards of Bordeaux. French winemakers, desperate for new land, crossed the Pyrenees into Rioja. They brought with them something that would change everything, the practice of aging wine in small oak barrels. Before this, Rioja wines were young, fresh, meant to be drunk quickly. After, they became something else entirely, structured, complex, capable of aging for years, even decades. This is why, even today, Rioja classifies its wines by time spent in oak and bottle. Crianza aged a minimum of 2 years, 1 in oak. Reserva, 3 years, 1 in oak. Gran Reserva, the pinnacle, 5 years or more, with at least 2 in oak. In 1991, Rioja became the first region in Spain to receive the highest wine classification, Denominación de Origen Calificada. A recognition finally in law of what winemakers here had known for a century. Some names in Rioja are not just wineries, they are institutions. Marqués de Riscal, founded in 1858, one of the first to bring French winemaking methods to Spain. Today, crowned by a titanium building designed by Frank Gehry. Marqués de Heredia, whose Castillo y Gran Reserva is considered by many collectors one of the greatest wines Spain has ever produced. López de Heredia, a time capsule in Haro, still making wine the way it was made over a century ago, in cellars carved from stone. CVNE, Muga, La Rioja Alta, Contino, Ramírez de Ganusa, each with its own philosophy, its own soil, its own signature style. And a newer generation, Artadi, Remiluri, Telmo Rodriguez, pushing back towards single vineyard wines, old vines, and a renewed obsession with place over process. Rioja is not one story, it is 100 family stories, told one vintage at a time. No wine exists in isolation. Rioja was built for the table. A young Crianza, fresh and fruit-forward, pairs naturally with chorizo, grilled peppers, or a simple plate of jamon. A Reserva, with more structure and spice from the oak, wants something richer: roast lamb, slow-cooked meats, or the region's own patatas a la Riojana. And a Gran Reserva, silky, aged, almost fragile in its complexity, deserves something equally refined: aged Manchego cheese. Or simply nothing at all except quiet attention. This is a region where wine was never meant to be tasted alone. It was meant to be shared at a long table, over a slow meal, the way it has been for generations. Rioja survived phylloxera, it survived war, it survived changing tastes and changing centuries. What remains is a valley protected by mountains, shaped by two rivers of climate. And carried forward by families who still believe that time, patience, and oak can turn simple grapes into something worth remembering. This is Rioja, not just Spain's oldest wine region, its beating heart.